I'm no stranger to rewriting parts of the Elder Scrolls series. I've already done silly off the top of my head videos titled What If Skyrim Was Good, which I'm not very happy with, along with other videos titled What If Skyrim Wasn't Skyrim, which I'm much more pleased with. Even though people have a tendency to just spout Game of Thrones off the top of their head because they don't really know any mythology. Now, I've already said several times that I am not a fan of the 200-year time skip, or the content they filled it with between Oblivion and Skyrim. But for the purposes of this video, let's assume that the 200-year time skip stands, even though in my What If Skyrim Wasn't Skyrim video, I deleted it entirely. For the purposes of this video, 200-year time skip. Let's edit it though. So, after the Oblivion crisis, the cultural preservation party within the Altmer people, known as the Thalmor, rose to prominence. Since the Crystal Tower fell, and with it the Altmer's attempts at retaining the Elder magics from the time when the world was young, it makes sense the Altmer would feel lost on a cultural level, and would react by trying to preserve whatever they had in other ways, thus causing the Thalmor to rise in prominence, as it became one of the core values of the Altmer people. The High Elves to this day feel that Tiber Septim's conquest of the Aldmeri Dominion would have never been able to occur without the aid of that giant, magically impervious mecha titan, the Numidium. And having a proud people being subjugated by an empire that they feel is inferior to them builds up a ton of cultural resentment. It only makes sense that the Aldmeri Dominion would form again in more or less the way it did. So the Great War happened, the White Gold Concordat was signed, but let's write a new White Gold Concordat. The previous one had them ban Talos worship. That is to say, the worship of Tiber Septim ascended as a god, whether he is just Tiber Septim on his own, or is the lore community believes him to be the summation of Wolfhearth, Zurin Arctis, and Tiber Septim as a combined being. That part's irrelevant. Now, a lot of the White Gold Concordat being signed really plays into the Aldmeri commentary on Talos that Michael Kirkbride wrote in his out-of-game lore, and the supplementary lore talking about the towers. It's actually great lore for creating an ultimate villain who is an old Elnathay, kind of a demigod of an elf who has never died since the creation of Nirn, now seeking to unmake the world using the Thalmor as his puppets, promising them that they will go back to being ancient eternal spirits, when in reality, they will all get wiped from existence and only the original Elnathay will be restored. Not the original Elnathay's descendants, meaning that if that original villain's plan came to fruition, then all of the peoples would get wiped away, good and evil alike, and only the original spirits, which were their ancestors, would exist. Kirkbride's lore makes that kind of villain the perfect final boss for a "Will Nirn be destroyed?" story that Bethesda has really like to make these days. It's another reason I prefer Elder Scrolls to Daggerfall to all the other Elder Scrolls games, because the fate of the entire world isn't at stake. But hey, Puppet Master of the Thalmor being an old Elnathay practically writes itself if you take Kirkbride's lore into account. That said, for the purposes of this video, we're going to throw all of that out. And Kirkbride's Altmeri commentary on Talos, so on, irrelevant. Lore about the towers, irrelevant. The story we'll be crafting today will ground things a bit more, and make the conflict in Skyrim make a lot more sense, with a pretty simple change. Instead of banning Talos, we're going to ban Shazar. Now you may be asking, Shazar who? You know how when they were producing Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, they kind of forgot about the Nordic pantheon of gods and just superimposed the 8-9 divines from Elder Scrolls 4 onto the Nords, completely erasing their original culture? Well, when producing Elder Scrolls 4, they just kind of superimposed the Imperial missionary cult from Elder Scrolls 3, Morrowind, onto Cyrodiil when making Oblivion, and forgot about all the religions that Cyrodiil was supposed to have. History repeats itself, right? What religions am I talking about? Well, the Imperial City was supposed to be the salad bowl for the Empire in terms of religions. You'd find people worshipping pretty much everything from everywhere. You'd have Imperial gods, Nord gods, Elven gods, Khajiit gods, unique gods specific to, certain cults. It was supposed to be renowned for that. But let's say that was too hard in terms of development.
What's the story with Bethesda's stories? How do we make our stories? KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. This is my own personal rule for myself, right?
The City of 1,000 Religions is a little too complicated, and Bethesda wants to keep it simple, stupid. Even though it's a programming term and not fit for use in writing.
Actually, our designers are our writers. So we don't have anyone as a sole writer. They're also quest designers, level designers. So if you're looking for that kind of thing, we would look for, like a quest designer, you really have to understand some programming language. We'd look for a quest, like here's what the player does, here's what the characters say, that kind of stuff.
Meaning they don't have proper writers. Okay, well that makes sense. But still, I think, while keeping it simple, stupid, you could introduce one more god, Shazar. If you read the old lore, Shazar is the creator god of mankind. He's also known as the missing god. He created humans and then vanished. It's basically Shor, but without all the Atmoran baggage, or the we fought elves till the bitter end baggage. He was created during the dawn of the First Empire, because Elysians realized that aliens would not worship Shor, because Shor was Lorcan, and Shor, in his own legends, was the enemy of elves. There was a lot of overlap. So, to create something both Nords and aliens could worship, they created Shazar, and stripped away all that baggage from the past, creating a new god who is the creator god of mankind. A very similar thing happened to Auri-El and Alduin. See, the Nords weren't going to worship Auri-El because he was seen as a positive figure by the elves, and Alduin was seen as a negative figure by the Nords. So the Elysians created a hybrid of those two gods, the Akatosh, god of time, that both could come to worship. You see, Akatosh is a man-dragon. If you look at his depiction in the citadels and stuff, he's a man with a dragon face. But Bethesda and their Oblivion/Skyrim era keep it simple, stupid writing thought it would be cool to make Alduin the firstborn of Akatosh come Skyrim, which unironically makes Alduin his own grandpa, or ruins the previous lore and retcons it. Either way, it's not cool. Now, of course, we do get folks who are arguing, in this case, that the religious texts of the Elysian Order are all subjective. And whilst that can be argued on a case-by-case basis, when you use it as broad strokes to ignore everything, then you're just arguing for the world getting stupider and less interesting. Congratulations for patting yourself on the back, lore community, for making Tamriel a more boring place than any other major fantasy universe. The point of this whole derailment was that Shazar is the imperial creator god of mankind. So the wording of the White Gold Concordat is going to be changed to outlaw Shazar, and due to a technicality the Imperials weren't aware of when signing it, all variants that include Shor and Lorcan. There's a reason for this. The elves hate Lorcan. He's the trickster god who's responsible for trapping all of the ancient eternal spirits, the old Elnathae, in cages of mortality. Auri-El and the other old Elnathae, known as the Aedra, or quote-unquote, our ancestors, battled him and his forces who were, yes, humans. So this elf-human blood feud has been going on for thousands of years. There's a reason for this racism, and it's rooted in the Dawn Era, back when the gods walked among us. Imperials actually somewhat favor elves over Nords, slightly in their religion, as Auri-El/Alduin has been remade into Akatosh. The god of time is the chief deity of the imperial religion. Shazar, on the other hand, Shor, who would be the big chief of the Nords, he has been relegated to small time worship as the creator god who vanished, known as the missing god. Now, there's some conjecture about the Elysian Order's one true god being Shazar, and that would make sense, but it's irrelevant to our topic. The Elysian Order was so far long ago, and any surviving cults of them would be powerless in the politics of today. So, to the Imperials, who see Shazar as the missing god and therefore no longer relevant, this is a tiny price to pay for peace. Other than scholars and priests, the average citizen doesn't even care about Shazar at all. They know his name, but that's about it. So the White Gold Concordat goes unopposed in Cyrodiil by the Elder Council and all the surviving nobility. Well, at first this is hunky-dory. No one cares about Shazar being outlawed until the Thalmor come and claim the Empire has broken its word and violated the Concordat. The Empire's like, what? The Thalmor tell them that Shor worship is going on in Cyrodiil, and they have proof. What does Shor worship have to do with the Concordat, the Empire asks, to which the Thalmor pull out the actual Concordat and show the legalese of the writing that shows that all variants of Shazar must be banned as well. That includes Shor. The Imperials never thought about that. It never occurred to them. The advisors, the people in the room at the time never brought it up. And so this idea that Shor worship could be banned too just kind of went under the radar until now. And it was all playing into the Thalmor's hands. The Thalmor planned this. The Empire, not ready for another war, allows Justiciars. See, the whole Justiciar thing wasn't actually a part of the Concordat. Now, in this particular rewrite, at least, instead, it's a concession the Empire made when they realized that they'd be going to war over Shor worship. Many Nords in Bruma were arrested, and Skyrim began to follow. Ulfric Stormcloak starts the Stormcloak Rebellion, and Skyrim, the video game, is happening all over again. Some people may ask, how is this better? And that's actually pretty simple. You see, in Skyrim, the video game, Elder Scrolls V, they yap about Mighty Talos, how horrible it is that they can't worship Mighty Talos. But the Nords on both the Imperial side and the Nord Stormcloak side all agree that they will go to Sovngarde with honor, fighting for their beliefs. Sovngarde is the afterlife of the Nords. To the Imperials, they go to Aetherius when they die. They don't actually care about the ethereal subrealm of Sovngarde. But let's look at what Sovngarde means to the Nords. It's the underworld, where Shor awaits them in his mead hall, with all the other great warriors who passed on before. That's the key word here, Shor. By rejecting Shor, you reject Sovngarde. You reject your afterlife. That means if you follow the White Gold Concordat, you will never be with your loved ones in the afterlife. With this rewrite, I've given the Nords who worship Shor an irresistible urge to rebel. This isn't about honoring Mighty Talos. This is about your immortal soul and where it rests. This turns the Civil War from an attempt to turn Skyrim into an ethno-state, which everyone playing the game should be disgusted at if they realize the implications. Changes it from that into a holy war for the soul of the Nord people. Because we've confirmed Sovngarde is real, Aetherius is real, right? So where their soul goes is very relevant. It is an actual issue, not we're honoring Mighty Talos. To the Imperials, or Nords worshipping the Imperial Pantheon who don't care about Sovngarde, this isn't a big deal. And that, by the way, that is how you deal with imperialization. Let me touch on that topic for a second, since the lore community likes to come out and strut with imperialization as a totally legit reason for why Nords worship the Imperial Pantheon. While imperialization does fit as an acceptable excuse, it still makes the world boring. And obviously we don't want to do that. So, bringing the rewrite forward to Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, we're going to create completely separate types of settlements, completely separate types of architectures. They did this trick in Elder Scrolls III Morrowind with the Dunmer settlements and the Imperial settlements. We're going to resurrect this little trick and have towns that are entirely imperialized with minor Nordic influence versus towns that are entirely Nordic with minor imperial influences. The way people speak, that is to say their voice acting, the gods they reference, Kine instead of Kinnereth, and the side they're on in the Civil War will all change depending on what town they're in. There will, of course, be at least one, sometimes more, sympathizers for the other side in each town, because we used to all be one happy Skyrim, and this is broken and separated over time, people being driven out of certain towns. This town is Imperial, this town is Nordic, but we have family members who are both, so it's very conflicting. In fact, Whiterun is the too close for comfort combination of the two. We're going to make it an Imperial Nordic settlement in the truest sense, with the Greymane and Battleborn houses being Imperial and Nordic in nature, feuding with each other, with a Jarl who refuses to choose a side, and there might actually be dead people on the streets from time to time because of how the violence gets. The Jarl's trying to keep the peace, but this Greymane Battleborn feud is going to cost lives. In fact, you might be recruited by either the Greymane or Battleborn side to expose the other one as some sort of traitor to Whiterun, get their house destroyed, dishonored, outcast. There are a lot of possibilities. What I'm trying to say here, though, is that imperialization is real and it's bad. Native cultures are consumed by larger cultures. Although bits of their culture survive in the whole of the larger beast, the soul of their peoples are irrevocably changed. And we need to show that in the game. Using imperialization as an excuse for watering down a culture because you couldn't be bothered to express that culture well is just sad. So for some, loyalty to the Empire is being loyal to where they were born. It's very important to them. Loyalty to the town where they grew up in. Loyalty to the people they grew up with. People are products of their environments. That's why some will choose their loyalty over the old ways, as the imperialized Nords see the Stormcloaks. And the true Nords would look at these Nords who are virtually unrecognizable from the Imperials they're living with. They're traitors to the true Nords. Their lack of Shor worship means they will never go to the afterlife. It means that it's a lot easier to kill them, a lot easier to dehumanize them, since they've abandoned their true god and will never go to the same afterlife. After all, they abandoned their culture for what the elves tell them. The elves are trying to steal their afterlife from them. Worshipping Auri-El, Akatosh, Alduin would be a bad thing to the true Nords, who remember the ancient tales of when Shor marched against elvenkind. To the true Nord, who remembers the ancient tales when dragons dominated humanity. You know what the symbol of the Empire is? It's a dragon. Dragons are just plain bad to the true Nords. A memory of when they were oppressed and attacked by various groups. All these legends bundled up and scrambled across histories, merged into this conceit that empire equals dragon equals bad. And while it was just talk from ancient legends, not stuff to be taken seriously, the fact that the empire seeks to steal the soul of their people and their place with Shor in the afterlife, that has suddenly taken all those, well, that's just talk and legend stuff, and suddenly people are going, wait a second, this is serious. It would be unforgivable, and the Stormcloaks would be forced to rebel for their own sakes. This would energize the Civil War in a way that the droopy, lethargic Civil War in Elder Scrolls V Skyrim could never hope to have. That whole little yip-yap has been on my head every time I hear Nords go, Talos. Just a thought I've articulated multiple times on my live streams, now and again. And in a few months, when the live streams catch up, you'll eventually hear me yap about it, but that's pretty much it. The world of Tamriel is a fantasy world, written by writers. Unfortunately, the more recent writers aren't really writers, they're designers. They have no ambition to write, other than keeping it simple, stupid. And that's unfortunate, because the world of Tamriel has the potential to take concepts that we argue over, like gods or the afterlife, and make them real. Skyrim did. Skyrim gave physical presence to Sovngarde, and it didn't use it other than an arena for a boss battle. And yet, by the same token, there is supposed to be a holy war going on in the same province. They continually argue a case to make the divines less and less impactful, give humans more and more agency, make things more and more down-to-earth, gritty, and real. And by doing so, they are not taking proper advantage of the setting they've placed before them. A world where the gods are real, where the afterlife is real. What I'm trying to say is Tamriel, as a sandbox, as a fantasy universe, is just packed full of potential. And it is being grossly mismanaged in terms of storytelling potential. The games are fun. I have a Skyrim run now with over 600 hours in it. A Daggerfall run with several hundred hours to it. Morrowind runs aplenty. There are mods made every day. Intellectual property is obviously profitable, but the stories are just very sad. But that's just my opinion. And I'll leave it to stew for a while before I rant about other things. Thank you all for watching. As per usual, I will be live streaming on Twitch TV, link below. And I will see y'all next time. Go on. Two little pieces of food. Yes. Now we wait for just a moment. Then we very carefully go to scruff him. And then we carry him up.